Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, we've come to the end of a week, and that means the time has come for us to hand down our brutal judgments on the thumbs ups and thumbs downs of the week. I'll go first, and I'll start with a somewhat surprising thumbs up. Biden's commission on the Supreme Court, I kind of approve of it. Not because I think that they're going to come up with any great recommendations. Not that I think all that highly of the sort of people who are on that commission. And not that I think that the recommendations actually have any chance of passage in Congress. I mean, you've got almost no majority at all. I doubt whether they'll be able to get rid of the filibuster, and for something like reforming the Supreme Court, there is definitely going to be strong opposition. And if the filibuster comes in to operation, then nothing happens. No, the reason that I kind of like it is that, as we've discussed before, the Supreme Court failed this country massively following the election. They had a chance to bring some kind of closure to a bitterly fought
one way or another.
Yeah, one way or another. This was bitterly fought. The country was deeply divided. There were so many unresolved issues that arose out of the election, and then you had 18 states and the president of the United States filing a suit with the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court just turned around and disdainfully said, we're not getting involved, without any proper explanation as to why they weren't getting involved. Why did they get involved in 2000 in Florida, but they're not getting involved this time? Just no explanation. So whatever the calculations that went on in the minds of Roberts, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Barrett, they thought maybe, hey, if we show that we're not partisans, we're not pro-Trump, we're not pro-Republican, maybe they'll leave us alone. Maybe they won't come with reforms. Maybe they won't come with recommendations to pack the court. Maybe we'll show them, hey, we're good guys. Don't mess with us. Well, that was a massive miscalculation. That wasn't never going to stop the Democrats trying to tinker with the Supreme Court. And so I think that this is rather good and an appropriate punishment for a completely frivolous Supreme Court.
You're absolutely right. And, up until then, I foolishly, I'll admit it now, and say, well, at least we got the courts. Okay, well, we don't. And for me, if it was all of these allegations were so frivolous, well, prove to me they're frivolous.
Exactly.
Okay? And you know what the court should do in theory is always find the best example out there. Right. An example that you say, we think this is representative of all these claims here, and we're going to judge on it. And then they come to the conclusion, but we throw it out because of A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Gavel down, over. They should have done that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That lack of explanation was an open slap in the face of millions of voters. And that led directly to the debacle of January the 6th, because people were just so angry, so frustrated, so feeling that their vote doesn't count, that they don't matter at all to the power, to the great and the good and the powerful, that they expressed themselves in just this massive protest that went out of control. But it's the Supreme Court that was directly responsible for what happened in January the 6th. So I'm really happy that they're getting their appropriate punishment. And we've heard some whining now from Justice Breyer, and I'm sure others. Roberts is going to start whining that he's being treated meanly. Thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, we'll see what this review does. Biden has given them 180 days, I think. Okay, I'll be very curious on how they're going to try to explain why it's necessary or not necessary to. I mean, the way I look at it, I'm a traditionalist. We've had 9 on the bench now for most of the vast majority of the existence of the court. And we saw the example when FDR tried to do it. Even his own party said, let's not tinker so much, okay? And at the end of the day, the evolution of the Senate is about creating consensus, not 51-49.
Right.
That's what you do in the House.
Yes.
The Senate's tradition, and if you look at the Federalist Papers, this is what the founders, they wanted a more deliberative body,
Right.
okay? And a deliberative body that could create a basic consensus, not universal, but basically this is the thrust. And what they're doing, the last thing you want to do is tinker with the institutions when we are in deadlock. That's the last time you should do it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that are politically aggressive in wanting to use the courts. The courts are not supposed to be that. Now, another criticism I'll give you is that I guess, because my disappointment is that I guess really what it is, the courts are there just to protect corporations, because that's what they spend most of their time doing.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's the culture wars that you hear about the Supreme Court when they're deciding on abortion. Why is it in the Supreme Court? Okay, well, definitions of gender. Why is that in the Supreme Court?
That is absolutely right, because they are no more qualified to decide
than you and I.
When does life begin, and all of those sort of questions. No more qualified than anybody, than you, I, anybody else. They have no expertise. The whole idea that these aging judges start making these decisions, the first trimester and the second trimester, they know nothing about it. They know nothing, lacking qualification, or the definition of marriage and so on. I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution about it. So that means it should be decided by the public. Doesn't fall within their jurisdiction. Whereas elections, the conduct of elections falls directly within their jurisdiction, because there's a great deal in the Constitution about the conduct of elections.
And that's, because the court has been in this way now for decades, it makes itself irrelevant. And if they pack it, then it's just another politicized branch, and it's already politicized. But then it's basically, well, maybe we should just elect judges, have judge election day, okay? I mean, that's what they've degraded it down to. You and I, again, we always portray our age here, but there was a sense of reverence, okay? I mean, even to this day, you can't take pictures inside the Supreme Court. That's why I always see my foreign friends always ask me, why do they always have drawings, okay? Because it's our tradition, okay? Because it is kind of, it has a secular sanctity to it, okay? And that's gone out the window. All right. A thumbs up, but you'll be a little surprised. Hunter Biden in his book tour. Yes, because the pure entertainment that we're being given by the mainstream media, tying themselves up into pretzels and making themselves look like the buffoons they are, okay? Yes, we know it's your laptop. Everybody knows it's your laptop. Why do people ask them, is it your laptop? Well, we know it is, okay? The Guardian knows it is. They did a forensic study. Now this gets a little nuanced here. The hell with the pictures and the videos. I don't care. I don't care. Why should anyone care? That's his lifestyle, if you want to call it that. That's his business. He's 50-something.
Well,
okay?
I mean, I just disagree slightly there. Those pictures depict illegal activities, and therefore the question arises, look, drug taking is illegal in the United States. I mean, people go to prison for taking cocaine, methamphetamines. These are all dangerous illegal substances. So the question does arise, well, how come he's been doing this for years and he's never been prosecuted for any of this? I mean, he doesn't seem to be terribly worried if he takes pictures. So he obviously doesn't think that he'll ever be prosecuted.
That's a very fair point, and I give you that here. However, the point that I think is far more important is the corruption of the Biden family, okay? And that is the strategy that the media is using. They're actually focusing on the lurid pictures so they don't talk about what's in the It's very much like Hillary's emails. WikiLeaks, how did they get them? Who are they colluding with? No, I don't care. I'm interested in what's written in those emails. That's kind of interesting in there, isn't it? And the same thing applies here. They're using the same ploy. Now, sure, I'm sure Joe's handlers told Joe and Hunter, all right, this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we have to roll it out. We have to saturate everyone so we can get past this. It's like a gallstone. You got to push it through, okay? And no one will talk about the corruption of the Biden family. And I say that because based on Bobulinski's testimony, at least public appearances like on Tucker. So, I'm not interested in this lurid stuff. They always go for the lurid stuff, the switch and bait. Right. And the media is more than happy to comply.
Right. So, no, that you're absolutely right there, because the question that any interviewer should ask, well, when Ukraine of this Burisma paid you $1 million a year, what exactly were they paying you for? I mean, what was it? What was it you were doing that merited $1 million a year? I mean, you never showed up for any meetings. You never went to Ukraine. You never went to Russia. You don't know any of the languages. You don't know anything about gas. What else were they paying for other than access to your father? And that is pay to play. That's the real issue. And of course, it goes into to a much greater extent, because much bigger sums were involved with the China. What was China paying for? I mean, these people, they don't just throw money around. The Chinese don't just say, you're a cute kid. Here's $1 million. We like you so much. That's not how they operate.
It's very interesting, isn't it, George, that I don't know how many pages this screed is, okay? I don't even know if he wrote it, but, let's say he wrote it. He has a good enough memory to write a biography of himself, but he doesn't have a memory of a laptop?
Right, exactly.
That's kind of strange.
Very
he has a memory for all these other, right. I mean, the minutiae, the details of his drug addiction. I would have thought with that kind of mental state, you wouldn't remember anything. It would be one long blackout, but right. Apparently not. Right. Okay, I guess right. He knows where all his crack pipes are, but he doesn't know where his laptop is. Right. Really?
Right. That exactly. And there's enough of those emails and messages on that laptop to show that there was a paper trail showing direct pay to play. That's exactly what they were paying for to get to his father. That's it. So, go ahead.
And it's a very important point here, is that when we saw the interview with Bobulinski, he made it very clear, and I thought it was a very important point on his part, is that these are emails sent to me. I didn't author them. I'm not soliciting. They're soliciting me, okay? So, I mean, and there's corroboration. I mean, apparently, George, a lot of people have actually seen the contents of this laptop, apparently, okay? So this switch and bait thing it runs real thin here, but it shows the fundamental dishonesty. And really, you're pulling Russian disinformation again. Right. I mean, the well is empty. Okay.
Yes. That's right. But I mean, that was one of my thumbs downs. And although I agree with everything you just said there, the thumbs down was the disgusting, obsequious conduct of the various interviewers, but particularly not Jimmy Fallon, the guy
Jimmy
Kimmel, yeah.
The other guy that isn't funny, yeah.
That's right, yeah, the other guy who isn't funny, that's right. And there he was. It's all so funny. He was joking about, he said something like, well, I'm surprised to see you with shoes on. Yeah, I managed to put my shoe on, but it's the pants that are difficult. Pants and so on. And then he sort of makes, because I think he asked us some perfunctory question about the laptop. He said, well, I wouldn't believe anything at all that Rudy Giuliani says, and laughter, guffaws, and so on. Well, you really ask, who are you junkie, idle bum, you're 50 years old, still living off your father. You are ridiculing Rudy Giuliani and this Jimmy Kimmel you go, yeah. This is a guy who put away the mafia. This is a guy who put away the Wall Street crooks. This is a guy who was mayor of New York on 9/11, and you're ridiculing him, and you think this is funny? I mean, it was so despicable.
In another way, that was an egregious error on his part. Well, again, you don't know where your laptop is, but you know what Giuliani was doing in Ukraine. So
Right.
I guess we can assume you were watching real closely what was going on. It
Right.
doesn't make any sense, and it never did from the very beginning.
Right.
And it just shows the fundamental dishonesty of the people that are supposed to be informing us. And you know, this just adds to it. I mean, the division here when people when people see that he's being feted, and he's being congratulated and treated it with kid gloves, it just a disgust. It's just because, you know, people can take the corruption stuff. We all know government is corrupt, okay? But, you know, just like you said, I'm glad you made it, you know, there's a lot of people with addiction problems out there, okay? And a lot of them go to prison, okay? Right. Not the son of the president of the United States. Right. That says a lot about, you know, their values.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So my next thumbs down rather, is AOC. Now, so, you know, she, you know, I don't know whether people have followed this. She was interviewed about the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis by a kind of a liberal New York Jewish organization, and she was asked, you know, what's the way forward? And then, you know, she poured forth complete gibberish. I mean, it was literally gibberish. I mean, there's nothing there made any sense. He was talking about what's and how's and who's and why. I mean, none of it made any sense. And then somebody, I think it was the Twitter handle is something like Human Rights Watcher, said, he sent out a tweet with this clip of her talking this gibberish, saying, this is distinctly underwhelming. Now, this person was then visited by the Highway Patrol and asked that, you know, had he been threatening AOC? And apparently this Highway Patrol had been, you know, set on him by the Capitol Police. Now, AOC at the moment is denying that, oh, I didn't do it. You know, I didn't send anyone to harass him. But the fact is that AOC has been pursuing a campaign of snitching on people who say mean things about her on Twitter. So say, hey, you know, Twitter, you know, look at all this as a harassment. And so this, and remember, she's also was, how much mileage did she get after January the 6th? I was almost murdered. You know, even though she didn't encounter anybody on January the 6th. So
wasn't even in the building.
Wasn't even in the building. So here we have a situation. Now, we may find out that she was actually more directly involved, or somebody on her staff was directly involved in getting Twitter to get onto the Capitol Police, because it was Twitter who obviously let the Capitol Police know this person's address. I mean, how did the police know where he lived? So it was obviously Twitter informed them of this address. So this is really, really creepy that politicians can now get the police to harass ordinary citizens who are doing nothing more than offering their criticism. I mean, to say this is distinctly underwhelming, that's not a threat.
It was an extremely accurate observation. Yes. I saw a snippet of it. She had no idea what she was talking about. Right. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
It was just gibberish. Really was. It's like somebody's just words that just, you know, stringing words together that mean absolutely nothing.
And this again is another attack on free speech from the left. Okay, just that, you know, you and I think that we show strength by going on fora of mostly lefties. That's basically what happens to us here. But, you know, I have respect for these people because they have an argument to make, and they will come back at us, and they allow us to go for a back and forth. Okay, that's fine. That's the way it should be. Right. But, you know, this is just complete intolerance. Right. And it shows how vacuous and shallow she is, when she's afraid someone's going to be mean to her. Right. Well, that's really social media. Look it up. It's the mean place. Okay, that's why I'm pretty easy with it. I'm not particularly involved in it because I'm not interested in low octane thinkers that have nothing else to do but to, you know, hold their phone and stare at it and get enraged somehow. But it shows, you know, she's really shown herself for what she is, just a complete fraud. And
Yeah.
actually what she is. And believe it or not, you can throw this into the category where Trump is that we're getting a politics of politicians that are celebrities, not politicians, not thinkers, not doers.
Right.
Okay. I mean, where's her picture at the border?
Right. Right.
Is her white pantsuit in dry cleaning? You know, does she need to? Did she lose that? Like Hunter lost his her ticket to the dry cleaning, like Hunter lost his laptop.
That's right.
I mean, these people, they're not serious people. They're not serious people.
And look, I mean, if you're going to be in public life, if you're going to be in politics, you're going to be attacked. You're going to be criticized. You're going to be, you know, you're going to arouse anger, hatred. If you don't like it, then don't go into public life. You know, go back to being a waitress or a bartender that you
ask Larry Flint and you know, going back to that famous, it's a great film too with Woody Harrelson. Okay, anyway, we'll do film reviews later. All right, a thumbs down. The Biden administration taking on gun control and the border all at the same time. Wow, these guys are really interesting. You know, they can't do either one right. Okay, and these are the two hottest issues with half the public, okay? With half the public, border and guns, and they're doing it simultaneously and doing both very badly. Yeah. As we said in a previous podcast, anyone that knows about something about guns and is a responsible gun owner will listen to the president of the United States. Sorry, we've already used the word here, gibberish coming out of his mouth, okay? And then I didn't go into see the details of Biden's border czar. She resigned? I mean, how many days are we in?
Yeah, she was the one who used this famous expression, well, there was a pent-up demand. Yeah, there was pent-up demand because Trump had actually closed the borders. Yeah, pent-up demand. So when you
what are you talking about? Bitcoin?
Yes, so, yeah, when you kind of unilaterally open up the border, whoom, they're all going to come in. I mean, this was a crisis entirely brought on by Biden. There was absolutely no reason for this.
What is this about? Is this the Battle of Verdun? There's a pent-up demand? I mean, these people are just not serious. The professional managerial class. Good, I got to say it. Okay, so that was my thumbs.
And Harris, who was appointed as the point person on this, she still hasn't gone down to the border. I mean, it's like she's obviously, hey, I'm not touching this with a barge pole. You know, I know the president told me to get a handle on this, but she says, yeah, this is political suicide for me. So I'm not going down to the border.
Yeah.
Which gives you a sense of what this administration is about. You know, somebody can just simply say, no, not doing it. Well,
that tells us a lot of what's going on in the administration and who's making decisions. Never in my lifetime. That's what your vice president is for, to take the shit. Okay, right. That's what the vice president is for. And then you learn you learn how to be a leader when you're given a tough job. Okay, you know, if she had any common sense, if she weren't hackling all the time, this would be a way to go down there and shake it up and say, we maybe should go back to this and maybe we should do this. Look like a leader. I mean, she would shine. Because there's no leadership. There's no leadership right now. She doesn't want
to get blamed for it. She's planning on becoming president.
Because it would be hard. Yeah. It would be hard.
Right. There she'll be, she'll be there. And suddenly everyone, all of the anger that the public feels about what's going on at the border will be directed at her. It's her crisis. So, hey,
no, she's more worried about, keeping racism out of ice cream production. Okay. She'll be fine there. She'll be fine. Okay. All right. You're up.
My next thumbs down is Katie Hill, Congresswoman Katie Hill. I don't know whether people remember her. She was a California congresswoman who a couple of years ago had to resign after the publication of various photographs of her engaging in a kind of menage a trois with her husband and a staffer, somebody who was on her staff that she was paying. She resigned, somewhat bad grace, talked about double standards, men can get away with things, women can't, completely untrue. But one of the remarkable thing that happened at the time of that scandal was that Matt Gaetz came to her defense. And spoke up for her and said that she was being unfairly bullied and so on. So now, this Katie Hill is attacking Matt Gaetz and demanding that Gaetz resign, and that she feels a certain disgust that he had defended her because, of course, he was really covering for himself. And the only reason he came to her defense at that time was because, there was, all these scandals that were percolating about him, and he was covering himself. And so she feels really repelled by the fact that that Matt Gaetz actually had anything to do with it. So she's saying, no, Matt Gaetz needs to resign. Well, so far, no, we haven't had any substantive allegations against Gaetz. I mean, whereas in her case, this is quite serious because this was a staffer, a very young staffer. She was only 21, 22, whom she involved in her sexual shenanigans with her husband. That's a serious business. I mean, this isn't just simply whatever, even just going to resorts and with loose women or whatever. This was this is a serious business. This was somebody who was I think was getting money. It was a congressional staff.
Yeah,
that's why she had to resign. Nothing like this has been alleged about Gaetz. So now the one thing about politics is loyalty is pays. If you're in trouble and then somebody comes to your defense when you're in trouble, you damn well better show your loyalty to that. I mean, I don't know whether you remember some years ago, John Tower. Do you remember when John Tower was selected by George H.W. Bush to be defense secretary? He had been a long-serving senator, and for some reason, the Democrats hated him, and they all decided that they were all going to vote against him. And they cited that he drank too much alcohol and whatever. It was a phony thing, but they just wanted to hurt George H.W. Bush. So all of the Democrats voted against Tower, with one exception, and that was Senator Christopher Dodd of Connecticut. And the reason they didn't vote is that he remembered when his father, Thomas Dodd, was censured. This was sometime in the 1960s, was censured by the Senate for misappropriating campaign funds. One of the people who voted in favor of his father was John Tower. And so, one favor deserves another. So he was the one Democrat who refused to vote against Tower. But so that's what you do in politics.
It's really interesting you mentioned that. Wow, this is so old-fashioned. Loyalty, right. Isn't it? So old-fashioned because people turn on a dime on their friends, just feed them to the wolves. But I'll tell you, two people that were two of the most important Republicans in our lifetime, probably in the 20th century, was Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. Yeah. And both flawed politicians, absolutely. But one thing you cannot deny, they were always loyal. Yep. I mean, look what Nixon did after he lost the gubernatorial race in California. I mean, he was finished. He was done, okay? But you know what he did? He went on the road and he supported Republicans endlessly, exhaustively, okay? And when 68 came around, he was loyal. I mean, I remember he came to my primary, he came to my election, he came to my state. That's right. Okay.
And he did it because he campaigned for Barry Goldwater, who really wasn't Nixon's cup of tea. I mean, he was, he was much more of a libertarian zealot, which Nixon never was. But he campaigned for Goldwater at the time when Rockefeller and Romney, Mitt's father, were actively working to ensure Goldwater's defeat. So what he did, the party was, remember that, he stood by our man.
And what happened to Romney? What happened to Rockefeller?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. All righty. I have a thumbs down. I don't think we're going to be joking too much. President Zelensky of Ukraine, he went to the line of conflict at the line of conflict with the Donbass. Big public relations binge. Is he planting a flag? Is he sending a signal? Who is he a pawn for? Very, very dangerous, nasty business that's going on right now. We're very close to a very serious conflict. We'll have ramifications that will be with us for the rest of our lives. And where is the coverage? We're going to talk about this on Crosstalk tomorrow. I have deep foreboding about what's going on, very deep, because the outcome is very clear. Is that Ukraine will be utterly defeated, humiliated, but will be the political winner. okay, because the West will back him, and the sanctions, future sanctions against Russia are obvious. Okay, Nord Stream will go.
Right.
Um,
No, that, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and what it does too is that it sends a signal that Russia is a military target now, not just sanctions, not just rhetoric. It's the real deal here, okay? And I don't want to go into depth about it because we've talked about it many times on this podcast, but I encourage viewers to take a look at our past ones. We go into great detail about what a conflict could bring about.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with you. And he has turned out to be an even weaker
Yeah.
leader than his predecessor. So his thing that he was going to be he's the outsider who's going to cut through all the nonsense, bring peace in the southeast, reconciliation with Russia. None of that has happened. And right now, he's playing a very dangerous game. He really. He doesn't have too many cards to play, and there are too many forces that are actually very happy to see a war that Ukraine will lose. And Russians are not the ones who want to see a Ukraine defeat, because that's, as you said, that's going to be a disaster for Russia. But there are people in the west of Ukraine who would be very happy, essentially, to get rid of all these Russians, and then they'll have a nice homogeneous Ukraine that will join NATO. And of course, there's the United States, which will be, again, quite happy to see a Ukraine that would be part of NATO, and Russia completely isolated, completely pushed out of Europe.
Well, you know what's really sad, George, is that if they want NATO membership, there's an easy way there, actually. Leave the Donbass alone. Say goodbye. Bye. We say you don't have to have a conflict, okay? Because if there is a conflict, they will. Okay, first of all, what is the status quo? The Donbass, the two republics there, they are effectively completely not under the control of Kiev right now. They have a kind of quasi-legal relationship with the Russian Federation that is unclear intentionally. Okay, it's still recognized as part of Ukraine, the sovereign country of Ukraine. However, it is not under the control of the Kiev government. Now, if they were to let it go, then there would be no reason for a war. But I think they don't want to do that.
That's a problem. But I think that's why the Russians aren't really all that happy with taking over the Donetsk and Lugansk, because the alternative would be, well, okay, now it's gone. Ukraine will join NATO. I mean, then it's a done deal. Ukraine will be a NATO. Donetsk and Lugansk will return to Russia. But Russia has no interest in that. I mean, that's a catastrophe for Russia.
What I'm saying is that if they keep their focus on the goal, then you have to.
Oh yeah, no, I think
you're willing to say depart. Okay, fine, go. But see, the thing is that they can't. Excuse me, because the rest of Ukraine will fall apart.
Yeah,
and that's what they're afraid of.
Well, no, that's right. But I mean, those are definitely mutually incompatible goals. You can't NATO membership and keep the Donbass. I mean, you can't do that.
You have to decide what you want.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't have both.
Right. So my next thumbs down is actually a surprising one. And that is Putin's spokesman, Peskov, made a remarkable statement the other day. And he said something like, well, we're not going to stand by if Ukraine mounts an offensive and for another Srebrenica to take place in the Donbass. Now, first of all, it shows his ignorance of history, and he really doesn't seem to know much about what really happened in the war in Bosnia. But apart from anything else, you're throwing under the bus the one people who are on your side in Europe, which is the Serbs of Serbia and the Serbs of Bosnia. I mean, these are the only people who are refusing to join NATO, the only people who are generally consistently pro-Russian. And a lot of pressure has been exerted against Bosnia, that Bosnia should join NATO, and it's the Serbs who are refusing to go along with it. So you're throwing them under the bus, to make a very silly point. I mean, if you're really going to try and make an analogy with Yugoslavia, then bring up Operation Storm, what Croatia did when they mounted an offensive and drove out the Serbs of Croatia. 200,000 Serbs were just driven out of Croatia. That's a much better analogy than to bring up Srebrenica. So that's a really serious own goal for Peskov. And I'm sure the Serbs were watching this and were very unhappy with what he said.
He should have just stuck to ethnic cleansing, and that would have been made the point, okay? Yes. Because that is the reason why. Well, one can make the claim that the Donbass has already been a victim of ethnic cleansing. 14,000 people, up to 14,000 people, were killed during the anti-terrorist operation, as they call it. So, I mean, that would have been a much clearer one. Obviously, I think Peskov was kind of pandering to a myth that circulates in the West, which is not a good idea to do.
Not a good idea. He was trying to be too clever by half. Hey, you don't want a Srebrenica. We're all against Srebrenica, but that's what might happen, Srebrenica. But no one in the West is going to buy that argument, because they're going to turn around and say, well, who were the Serbs enablers in the 90s? It was the Russians who were their allies. So now you're talking about Srebrenica. We wouldn't have a Srebrenica if it weren't for you. You open yourself up to all sorts of attacks. So it's a very, very foolish statement to make.
Yeah, it's only people like you that pick it up. Ignorant people in the West don't. They wouldn't understand it. Okay. All right. I have a thumbs up. The Russian public. There are public opinion polls in Russia, but George and I default to the Levada poll because they don't like the Kremlin. They don't like Putin. Okay, so that's our litmus test. Okay, so for me, they have a lot more veracity and then just the state controlled and paid for polling agencies. I look at them as well, but Levada is what I default to because after living here over 20 years, they are pretty good pollsters. Maybe some people in the West could take some notes on how they do their polling, okay? Anyway, my thumbs up is for the Russian public. A new poll that has come out, 48% of Russians polled think that Navalny's 2.5 prison sentence for fraud is fair. So that's 48%. Now, what are the other numbers here? 29% disagree. Now, I'm assuming the rest of them don't have an opinion, okay? So,
there's a lot of people having no opinion.
Well, I need, this is a good juncture to kind of explain to people. Russians don't like talking about politics, not at all. That's not, see, they associate that with the 1990s. And those were the years of great trouble for Russia after the end of the Soviet Union. So the way they look at the way using a political language, they would just say, we want things better. We want our leaders to better schools, better roads, okay, better healthcare. I mean, it's everything here is bread and butter. They want a better life. That's it. It's very, very simple. And governors and mayors are praised and reelected, or thrown out because they didn't measure up to what they expected, what the voters expected of them. It's very, very simple here. And so, talking about Navalny, I constantly ask people, and most people are like, whatever. Or a lot of my neighbor that when I walk my dogs, we talk about it sometimes, and he says he's an agent of the West. A lot of people believe that.
But I don't think there's any real question about that. I think that's pretty.
Yeah. And people believe that he's corrupt. And plus, even for liberals here, his authoritarianism and his racism is very, very unpalatable for even liberals here, because he's very authoritarian, and his videos about migrant workers from the Caucasus are really repugnant. Okay, you can go watch them. I think people have put English subtitles down for you.
Right.
So, in praise of the Russian public.
All right. I have another thumbs down, and that just came up about an hour or so ago. We both received a letter from our friend Dima Babic, and he sent an article from the New Yorker. It was an article written by Susan Glasser, who's their regular writer, and it's all about Putin and Biden and so on. And there's nothing really on the slightest interest in it. It's a completely worthless piece of trash. But I do think it's worthwhile our viewers reading it, because it's the purest expression of American ignorance, narrow-mindedness, and stupidity when it comes to Russia. In other words, as people like Glasser, she's writing in the New Yorker, it's a very prestigious publication. To her, Russia has no interest, Russia has no security concerns. The whole sole purpose of Russian existence is to make life difficult for the United States. That's all they do. They're just there to either exploit the Biden's early days in the administration, or to exploit the lame duck administration. That's all they do. You know, Putin did what he did in Ukraine because he didn't like Biden's lighthearted little quip about his being a killer. You wonder what would happen if Putin had described an American president as a killer. Would that still be a lighthearted quip? But that's it. So the fact that Putin's very concerned about what's going on in Ukraine, that's nothing. It's just that he just didn't like that little joke at his expense about a killer. That's the purest expression of American absolute solipsism. And it's actually quite frightening. I mean, when you think that the greatest power in the world is so shockingly ignorant about the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the politics of pettiness. I mean, Susan, I think it's Glazer is the way it's pronounced. She is such a low octane thinker. She is the wife of Peter Baker.
That's it.
I mean, another real
golden thinker. The New York Times, I think, White House correspondent. I think, yeah.
Just a conduit for power. That's all it is. I was on a radio interview with him. This was many, many years ago. I think it was like 2005, and he had a book that had come out on like Russia under Putin's eyes, or something, something stupid. And the first chapter is devoted to the sanctity and the saintness of Kasyanov, the prime minister that was Putin's first prime minister, which of course he was just the cog for all of the oligarchs. He was the doorkeeper for the oligarchs that existed under Yeltsin. And so I was on this radio interview with him, and I was asked about his book, and I said, I think it's Russia Eyes Shut, because you don't know anything about what you're talking about. Kasyanov is a criminal. He was called what was his Michal? He was called Misha 3%, because every single oligarch deal he got a cut. Okay, and he has this palatial dacha, a country house, outside of Moscow, and he was just the humble prime minister. It was really great. When he finally Kasyanov got the boot. But see, this is what Susan Glazer and Peter Baker, they think that's what Russia should be. Right. A guy that will make deals, take his cut, sell out Russia, and Kasyanov and his ilk did. They ruined this country for a decade, and those are the people they praise, because they're the ones that would have given away the farm, and they would gladly do it.
That's right. No, that's exactly that. For them, that is the good Russia. A Russia that exactly completely subordinate to the West and gives away everything. To all the giant corporations, gives away its gas interest, its oil interest, everything will be just handed over to the West. That's the good Russia. So yeah, absolutely. That's her perspective. So
at the time,
article really.
At the time, I right before that was when I was leaving United Press International. Many decades ago, it was a competitor of the Associated Press. Now United Press International, I don't even know if it's in existence anymore. But I was writing on the Yukos affair. And this is how I got on all of these people's radar. And I was cheering it on. I was like, finally, they're breaking up these oligarchic empires. And, Yukos is one of the greatest companies ever made. It was built on blood and corruption and all of this. And I was given the Russian perspective, what Russian media, I mean, how people reacted to this. And I called it the Putin's first oligarch war, which he won. And I've never changed my position on that. And I was always up against Susan Glazer and Peter Baker and all of this. And I think it was John Laughlin was on my side. And I love John, he's a great guy. And a few, Dima Babic, we've never changed on this, okay? And, if we could segue back to Ukraine, that's why Ukraine is in the mess that it's in. They never got rid of their oligarchs, okay? They weren't made to submit to the state and not the other way around.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. I don't really have anything else. Do you? Do you have any?
That's it for me. I think we covered a lot of ground right here.
All right. Well, those are our thumbs ups and thumbs downs for the week. We will be back adjudicating next week, and look us up on Rumble, because we're on Rumble now. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.